We are live. Our topic today is Who Needs Oil Anyway? And with us is Steve Gottenham. Steve, one of his books has sold over 100,000 copies in print. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, Armando. Great to join you again.
Excellent. Steve, let me start with a point this week in New York. Every time it's in New York. New York's the center of the world for this kind of discussions. But the discussions were about climate. And was everything well decided about climate in New York this week?
Well, they're having Climate Week this week, and about 6,000 people there. And it coincides with the United Nations General Assembly meeting. And so they have a bunch of dignitaries there. Prince Harry is there, and President Biden spoke for a while. Bill Gates, Matt Damon, the actor, and actually the president of Brazil spoke as well. President
Lula,
spoke there, and the theme of it is it's time. They're unhappy because we're not shifting away from oil very fast and coal and natural gas. And as a matter of fact, you talk about who needs oil. We now have globally 95% of the vehicles in the world, ships, planes, trains, and cars, run on almost all petroleum, a little bit of natural gas. We still have 65% of our electricity that comes from coal and gas, and still about 80 to 82% of the world's energy comes from hydrocarbons, coal, oil, and natural gas. That's about the same percentages as it was 25 years ago. So we still need oil, we still need gas, despite the big push to go to renewables.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And OPEC this week, at the same week, issued a report saying the forecast to 2050 will increase to 120 million barrels per day. Today, we are 100 million barrels per day in the world consumption.
Yeah.
So it's impressive. So it's increasing. I will ask you, who will tell to Al Gore and Greta that the oil consumption will increase?
Well, I think they're going to be disappointed. It's a little bit of a problem, but Greta comes from Europe, where there's about one vehicle for every two people. In the United States, we have one vehicle for every person, just about. But in many parts of the world, I'm not sure what the number is in Brazil, but in many parts of the world, there's only one vehicle for 15 or 20 people. And we use 15 or 20 times the plastic in the United States that most people in developing nations do. So nations are going to develop, and they're going to use more and more oil and gas. It is the most successful way to boost incomes and to build your society. And the great news is that it's not causing dangerous global warming, despite what most of the world thinks. We're going to see that is the case over the next few decades.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you mentioned that President Lula from Brazil spoke in the UN General Assembly. And what do you see Brazil? Is it negligent or efficient with climate issues?
Well, Brazil is actually, you can put this chart, is actually one of the biggest users of renewables in the world, according to the International Energy Agency, the IEA. Your energy supply is only about half of your energy supply comes from coal, oil, and natural gas. About 40% from renewables, and then electricity is even higher. It's about 85% of your electricity comes mostly from hydroelectric, which is a great source of electricity, but biofuels, wind, and solar as well. So Brazil is right where the most of the experts in the world want countries to be. The thing is that, by the way, Brazil's carbon dioxide emissions have gone up about 40% since the year 2000. Even though you're still using a lot of renewables, because your society is growing and people use sources that emit carbon dioxide. And again, Brazil is only about 1% of the world's emissions. It's relatively small. So we have many other areas, China and India and Southeast Asia and Africa, that are rapidly increasing their use of coal, oil, and natural gas. And as it should be, those many of those people don't have electricity, so they need to build out those systems.
But Steve, at the same time that Brazil has 70, 80% of electricity coming from hydro is very vulnerable because we have problems with water, rains, and
Yep.
seasons. And we need natural gas thermal plants to support this volume of hydro. So, what's the advantage that we have having hydro, but not for every time?
Well, hydro is fairly low cost and it can be turned up and down very quickly, so that's good. The advantage that everybody talks about, which I don't really think is an advantage, is there are no carbon dioxide emissions from it. That's what much of the world thinks, but it's really not. It's really not a factor. Earth's greenhouse effect, Earth's carbon dioxide in the atmosphere are dominated by nature much more than industry. Every day, nature puts about 20 times as much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere as all of Earth's industry, and removes about the same amount. And this comes out of oceans and many other things. So the great news, I mean, hydro does require a lot of land area for the dams when you create these great big reservoirs, but there are benefits also for boating and other sorts of things, recreation. But net zero, you can pop up another slide now. Net zero really is a no growth policy. The wealthy nations of the world, US, Europe, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, want to get to basically eliminate coal, oil, natural gas by the year 2050, replace it with wind, solar, and biofuels. But we're not anywhere close to that. This is a graph of the energy consumption, which is the blue curve, which since the year 2000 is up 47% globally. And the carbon dioxide emissions are up almost 45% globally since the year 2000. So we're not anywhere near trying to reduce these. The International Energy Agency wants us to drop CO2 emissions and even drop energy consumption by the year 2050. But the only way this could be possible is if the world stops growing, which is really not the best for society and for people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. And we are reaching the election in the United States next November, and
Yeah.
it seems that the candidates don't like to debate about energy, climate. Why they become quiet about these issues?
It's been pretty quiet. There wasn't much discussion. We had a Republican National Convention, and then even the Democratic National Convention, climate was not mentioned very much. And now it's not being mentioned much in the campaign. It's kind of the silent issue. And I think it's maybe because attitudes are changing in the United States a little bit. You can put up the next chart if you want. This is a survey by Monmouth University that was conducted about 5 months ago. And it shows that American attitudes on climate change are sort of softening. Back in 2021, the gray bar, about 56% of the country thought climate change was a serious problem. And in 2021, about 66% supported government action. But that has been declining a little bit. Now it's down to about 48% very serious, and has declined down to about 59% for government action. So, and the biggest change is with the young people, from ages 18 to 34, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's right.
they're just getting bombarded with all this information. It comes, it's all the time that they get this thing about disasters. And when a little bit of common sense enters in, then things are changing. So I think that's occurring in the U.S. and Europe. Europe's having second thoughts as well. You can pop up another slide.
Sure.
There have been very strong policies in Europe. Netherlands and Germany and England wanted to ban gas appliances, even though 85% of the homes in Netherlands use gas, more than 80% in England. The idea here was to get everybody to switch to heat pumps, which is very expensive. And well, they've stepped back on that too. Amsterdam, by the way, was going to be a gas-free city. They had announced that, but they have stepped back from that because people are not really interested, and they don't want to give up their gas furnaces, which really they're not polluting in any way. If you put a gas furnace in, there's still 70 million homes in Europe, mostly Eastern Europe, that are using wood for fuel, for heating. And wood, like coal, creates a lot of particulates. So if you put in a gas stove or furnace, the particulate levels go down by 100 or 1,000 times. It's pretty big improvement in indoor air. And then also there was pushes to go after agriculture for greenhouse gas emissions. Netherlands and Germany and France were saying, well, reduce your dairy herds. We don't want so many cows because they're emitting methane. And they were saying don't use synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, which also has greenhouse effects. And the farmers revolted. They drove their tractors and other things into Paris and Amsterdam and Berlin and blocked roads. And so Europe has pushed back from that. And then in May and June, we had a bunch of conservative wins in various countries. The conservative parties that aren't in favor of these climate agendas gained a lot of seats.
Yeah.
So Europe is sort of pulling back. Plus the fact that they've injured their industry with these green policies is not really helping things.
In the United States, some states are trying to ban gas appliance too. Which states are there?
There are about 7 of them where the cities or counties have banned them. California, Oregon, Washington, New York, Massachusetts, I think Maryland, and I may be missing one other. Most of these are cities or counties, although the state of New York has put bans in statewide, no gas appliances in new construction in 2026, and then even tall buildings in 2029. Wow. But we have a war going on in the United States. There are 24 states now that have passed laws that prohibit cities and counties from putting in bans on new construction, and they don't get much press. But so we've got this battle going on over appliances, and again, it's really sad. People should have choice of appliances. Gas offers so many advantages. Electric can be good depending on where you live sometimes.
But is there enough structure? I mean, grid infrastructure to receive this demand from gas to electricity?
Well, no, I think we talked about that last time too. We talked about the big power demand imbalance in the United States. There's going to be much more power demanded than can be supplied over the next decade. And a big part of that is to switch to electric vehicles. A big part is efforts to switch to electric heat pumps and electric appliances. And then artificial intelligence is the biggest one. So yeah, that's going to be an issue, and we just really can't switch and go electric for everything.
But Bill Gates is restoring a nuclear factory. I heard about that.
Yes, the one of the 3 Mile Island units, not the one that had the accident, the meltdown, which was closed in 2019. I don't know if it's Bill Gates, but Microsoft wants to restart that and use all the electricity from that. We also have they're restarting the Palisades nuclear plant in Michigan, which is another one that was closed to get electricity. They've extended the Diablo Canyon nuclear plant in California because they need the power. Texas has said that they have about 85 gigawatts of demand right now. They say by 2030 it's going to go up to 155 gigawatts of demand. It's going to more than double. They don't have any idea how they can produce that much electricity. And so we're also seeing many states that are extending coal-fired plants that were scheduled to be shut down. But at least in the United States, this is going to just stop the green movement in its tracks, because we won't have enough electricity to close these plants and make these transitions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me about Canada. Canada issued something strange for me, a report card on physical activity for children. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
This is kind of a wild one. So this was a government committee called the Report Card Research Committee. Is this light related? They said in Canada that it was getting too warm for the kids to go exercise. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. The average temperature in Toronto is 8.7 degrees Celsius each year. The average temperature in in Atlanta is like 16 degrees Celsius. In Miami, it's 25 degrees Celsius. And I think in Rio de Janeiro, the average temperature is 27.5 degrees
27,
Celsius.
yeah. Almost
So,
30 or
so,
something.
so the kids in Brazil must be getting no exercise, right, at all because of the
Right.
climate. I mean, it's if they make a list of the most foolish studies of the year, this study by the Canadian government has to qualify for one of the most foolish. But you know, everything has to be caused by climate nowadays. It doesn't matter what it is,
Yeah, exactly.
whether it's food or vehicles or homes or anything. It's all
Everything.
due to the climate. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah, a leftist speech and a very complicated one. Tell me, Steve, do you still believe that lithium batteries catch fire, or did you change your mind?
Well, they do. Actually, I just had an article that was published in the Wall Street Journal today, and and the title of the article was, let's see if I can remember, um, if you want green energy movement, don't forget to bring along a fire extinguisher, is what they said. And we talked about this last time, all the fires that were there. Well, there was another
Yeah.
one in Normal, Illinois recently at Rivian. Rivian is an electric truck manufacturer, pretty well-known name. But they've had 7 fires in the last 4 years at this facility at Normal. I don't know who provides their fire insurance.
Wow.
They just had one 2 months ago. They had 50 electric trucks sitting in a parking lot, and one of them self-ignited. And you can see what happens in this image. All 50 of them caught fire and burned up. You know, this is just crazy. When have you ever heard of a parking lot burning up? I mean, this is just goofy stuff. So battery fires are a big issue, and the more electric vehicles we put on the road, the more times we put in electric grid scale batteries, the more these fires are going to occur.
Steve, imagine that you have equal money that Bill Gates has. And
Yeah.
would you invest in companies that manufacture renewable equipment, or which type of supply chain you
No.
should invest?
Another article I just wrote, renewable equipment companies are terrible investments. And I'll give you a bunch of examples, and it's almost every phase of renewables. So there's a thing called the RENIX, RENIXX, what I think I mentioned in the past, the Renewable Energy Industrial Index, top 30 renewable firms in the world. It was set up by, let's see, a German company called IWR in 2006, and it had an initial value of 1,000 points. Well, this month it sat at 1,013. So that's like 18 years ago. It hasn't increased in 18 years. And by the way, Tesla was in the middle of these. Tesla's done really well. So all these other big renewable companies are just doing terrible. Their stock price is all down. It's really kind of a tough situation. You look at the big renewable companies in the world. The world's largest supplier of wind turbines, Vestas, the stock only rose 7% over the last 16 years. It's fallen 3 years in a row now. They're having trouble making a profit. They suspended dividends to shareholders in the last 2 years. Siemens Gamesa is the number 2 wind turbine maker. It's down 65% in the last 3 years. It reported a loss of 4.4 billion euros in 2023, and the German government gave it a 7.5 billion euro bailout. So it could keep going. But this is what we see. Wind solar panels, the same kind of thing. The top 6 suppliers of solar panels are in China, and China makes 80% of the world's solar panels.
Wow.
But the prices of the top 7 suppliers have all declined more than 50% in the last 3 years for solar panels. Just really a bad investment.
When you mention renewable equipment, you see the tiers of manufacturers before the final equipment. Is it correct?
We see the what about the equipment?
No, I mean, you have several tiers of providers, of manufacturers.
Yes.
Raw materials, components,
Yeah.
small equipment, big equipment.
It's mostly the equipment guys.
Equipment guys.
Yeah, I'll give you another one here. So Tesla. Go ahead.
In the renewable case, which equipment you are talking about? Plates,
Well, I talked
solar
about wind and
panels.
solar. Okay, let's
Uh-huh.
talk about EV companies. So,
Uh-huh.
Tesla was a spectacular success. Founded in 2003, it was the only publicly traded EV stock until 2018. And by the end of 2021, Tesla's value had soared to over $1 trillion. It was worth more than Toyota, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, General Motors, Ford, BMW, and Honda combined.
Mhm.
But Tesla is the exception. Since 2018, we've had 31 EV manufacturing companies go public in the United States. They did initial public offerings. And today, only one of those has a value more than the original IPO, a Chinese firm called LI Auto. And the declines have been huge. Fisker's down 99% from its IPO. Nikola down 94%. NIO down 50%. The Lucid Group down 75% their stock price. The Rivian stock price down 88%.
Wow.
And six others of those 31 companies have gone bankrupt. So just very, very poor investments if you wanted to invest or you did invest in an EV company. Let's talk about charger companies.
Well, but it means that it requires more money from the government to subsidize these companies.
Well, yeah, a lot of these guys are getting subsidies too, and their stock's way down. ChargePoint is the world's largest dedicated EV charger company behind Tesla. It's got over 25,000 charging stations in the US. It was started in 2021, but its stock price is down 76% in 3 years. And it lost 458 million on revenue of 501 million last year. It lost almost $1 for every dollar in revenue. Just very sad. And every charging company in the United States is losing money. Every single one of them. Nobody is breaking even.
Do you have an idea of the amount of subsidies per year for renewables?
They're quite a bit. I mean, it's 20-30% of prices for many of these things. I don't have that number at my fingertips, but it's quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
So we talked about ChargePoint. You put up the other slide. There's one on Plug Power there, right? So Plug Power is another one. Plug Power is a hydrogen energy systems company. It builds electrolyzers to produce green hydrogen, battery cells for hydrogen vehicles. It was founded in 1997 and it went public in 1999. Had a adjusted share price of about $160 per share. But during its 27-year history, it's never turned a profit.
Wow.
And it has a price under $2 per share. It's got loads of government subsidies. And in 2018, it lost $44 million a year. Last year, it lost $1.45 billion. You got to wonder, 27 years without profit, who invests in these companies?
Well,
Who
how
keeps
can
them going?
a company can survive without profit 20 years? It's impossible.
I don't know, but they're getting, we got crazy investors and then they get government subsidies. And so it's just goofy stuff.
That's great. Steve, in your recent book, Green Breakdown, you predicted something word I cannot understand very well, and I would ask to you. You see that you predict a renewable energy failure.
Yes.
What exactly does it mean?
Well, the physics are just against it, and all of these companies I've been talking about are a sign that this is coming. This is going to take a few decades because we still have all the leaders of the world in favor of renewables and pushing subsidies and that sort of thing. But the green breakdown is going to mean higher energy prices, electricity blackouts, less freedom, transnational energy shocks like we've had in Europe. Boy, what's going on with electric vehicles right now is really a big, big factor. Last month in August, EV sales in Germany were down 77% from the year before. They were down 40% in France from the year before. We have a lot of problems in the US with EV sales as well. This is part of the thing. The governments have been pushing electric vehicles and trying to force people to adopt them. And people are going, well, I don't want to put up with the cost and with the problems in cold weather and lack of charging and all that. But that's just one of many examples of this breakdown that's coming. Another one is California. The electricity prices are just outrageous in California. They've gone up 50% in the last 3 years. And if you're running an air conditioner in California, which can get pretty hot in the summer, for a summer month, it'll cost you $1,000 for a month.
Wow.
$1,000 to run an air conditioner. I think the people are going to revolt on the West Coast. They're just not going to put up with this. People are going to demand a return to low-cost, reliable energy. So we'll just watch for this coming. But your listeners should be careful about investing in these renewable companies.
Yeah. So that's the reason people are moving to Texas and other states from California. One of the reasons.
That's part of it. I mean, another thing is, for example, you can't get home insurance in many places in California. Part of the reason is the fires, because they have all these fires, and the fires are started by transmission lines. So what are they doing? They're trying to put in all these renewables, which require 2 to 3 times as many transmission lines as the traditional plants. Because for one nuclear plant, you have to build about 20 solar fields. And so you have to build this transmission all over. So you're going to get more fires. And so people's insurance is going to go up. I mean, it's a lot of, they have all sorts of problems because they keep pushing for this green energy stuff.
And do you consider that solar and wind is an additional energy that we are bringing to the grids, or let's see, no confident energy that we cannot count with that?
Right, you can't. I mean, you talked about hydro being a little bit not constant, but solar and wind are worse. You can go weeks on end without getting solar or wind if you have storms or clouds, and so what the grid operators have to do is they have to keep traditional power plants around as backup. They have to keep gas or nuclear or coal or hydro for when wind and solar don't run. And so then you end up with twice as much infrastructure, and it gets very, very expensive.
In our case, in Brazil, is natural gas thermal plants, almost 10 plants that we have available every time to when we have some failure of solar, wind, or specifically hydro. Steve, where can people, viewers can find your books?
So if you're in Brazil, the ebooks are probably the cheapest because I won't have to mail you one. But for other folks, you can get it from our website, Steve Gorham, GOREHAM.com. I'll send a signed copy out. But all these books have a lot of interesting things going on and crazy sidebars. For example, the Swedish scientist who says we should all be eating human flesh to help stop global warming. But so there are about 150 color sidebars, and there's a cartoon in front of each chapter. But my books still have all the economics and all the science and a lot of references to other places so that people can really understand the issues.
Perfect. Yeah, great. Great conversation with Steve Gorham. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Armando.
Have a great day.
You too.